Hockey, and in this case the NHL, is full of rules that are just waiting to be exploited. So today, let's go over a few ways teams could do just that, with some examples that some would call loopholes, intuition, or even cheating, and others that some would call stupidity. Some are commonly exploited, some rarely, but these are all things that I'm surprised we don't see more often, or in some cases, at all.
Can't make me cheat.
In the past few years, general managers seem to have found a way to save some money while dealing with players who really want to be where they are, and are willing to help the team contract-wise. Most recently, the Carolina Hurricanes signed Jacob Slavin and Seth Jarvis to contracts that will save them money against the cap every year, by simply deferring money to the year after the contracts expire. Some say loophole, some say it's just players taking less immediate money for the good of the team.
I think it's just some form of comfortability that I have here.
Where this tactic could make a little more noise is if the whole team did it. And if teams could get their whole roster to take these deals, they could legitimately save space for a brand new, very solid addition to their lineup. Either way, I'm surprised we haven't seen more, shall we say, interesting contract stipulations, but I'm guessing we'll see more teams explore this, or perhaps demand these in the future. And you can't talk contract loopholes without mentioning teams abusing the rule of having a regular season salary cap, but no salary cap for the playoffs. Recently, many fans have been irate over the Vegas Golden Knights and Tampa Bay Lightning before them, utilizing this to their advantage.
They're just loving you right now.
They've done so by placing players on long-term injured reserve, so they'll be allowed to exceed the NHL's salary cap by the amount of the player's contract minus their cap space if they have any. If not, they get the full benefit. And then using that new chunk of salary space, they acquire different players and keep the injured ones out just long enough so they suspiciously, conveniently, or coincidentally are not too hurt to rejoin the team at the start of the playoffs.
I'm going to play tonight. Feel confident that I'm healthy enough and ready to go, so why hold back? May as well get in there and play.
Where the salary cap no longer matters, so they can afford their original roster and their new additions.
First game back in 26, conditioning was going to be an issue. Is it at all?
What's that, sir?
Of course, they still have to make the playoffs without their original players, but since they're spending the newfound space on new players who are also deemed worthy of maxing out their allowed salary, they usually don't have much of a problem making the playoffs. And Vegas and Tampa Bay are only the most recent in a long line of teams to do this. The Blackhawks did this with Patrick Kane years before either of them, so whether the injuries and recovery times are suspicious or not, this has been going on for a very long time.
I think everybody's satisfied that at least to this point, there hasn't been game playing.
But it's not technically against the rules, so I'm shocked it's something we don't see even more often and to more extreme extents. As technically, nothing says players have to be physically injured to be placed on long-term injured reserve. And after all, who's to say when they are indeed ready or capable of returning? So hypothetically, what prevents players from having, say, a technically undetectable mental injury and then popping back right in time for the playoffs? Obviously, a really disingenuous thing to do, but does anything prevent it? Nope.
You know, if it were to be abused, that would obviously be something we'd want to address with the Players Association.
Just like there's nothing to prevent players from exploiting maybe the dumbest rule in the NHL, the blood rule.
You saw a little bit of blood there for Connor. That's a double minor.
You're given a 4-minute penalty instead of a 2-minute penalty if you high stick someone and they bleed. I'd go as far as to say that is one of the dumbest rules in not just hockey, but all of sports. It doesn't really apply to the significance of the high stick anyway. Broken cheekbone, possible internal bleeding, 2 minutes. Accidental graze resulting in a little bloody lip, 4 minutes. That's the lack of logic and stupidity behind this rule. And with how fast the game is now, refs still miss these plays and call nothing very frequently, even if someone is bleeding. But yeah, whenever there's a high stick, we see players frantically putting their hand over their face and then holding it out to look for blood. Usually, in a way, hoping that they are bleeding to get the additional power play time. As far as we know, players could be taking advantage of it occasionally, but I'm shocked we don't see it relentlessly exploited. How? Well, by giving their tongues or lips a small bite to draw a bit of blood and get the extra 2 minutes. Sure, it takes a lot to bite yourself hard enough, but with all the adrenaline that comes with playing the sport, I'm sure it wouldn't be that difficult for some people. After all, I've heard of players making themselves bleed in soccer and basketball, sports that don't have specific blood rules giving you an advantage for bleeding, other than that you can't play while bleeding, so bleeding could force a timeout, and players have done it deliberately for timeouts.
He was trying to bleed so we can get the refs to give us a timeout.
Imagine if the other team got a yellow card or a flagrant foul at the first sign of blood in soccer or basketball. It would be The Shining out there. For those who say there's too much integrity in hockey, yeah, that's why we see more flopping than ever.
That stick never touches him, and he sold it.
And what would take less effort or mental gymnastics than biting yourself would be some sort of little capsule filled with red liquid that could be activated with extreme pressure placed in, say, mouth guards, so players could simply chomp down extra hard and give the refs a quick concerned smile just in case they get even remotely high-sticked. If you watched the NHL as far back as the 80s and 90s, back when high sticks that drew blood often came with a 5-minute major and a misconduct.
The key is, of course, was he cut on the play. Janney, now there's the stick up. No doubt about the high stick.
You might remember the accusations of Ray Bourque using blood capsules. Perhaps far-fetched, but it would be extremely easy to do. Anyways, as long as this ridiculous rule is in place, I'm very surprised we don't see it exploited for how dumb it is more often, if at all. And while we're talking injuries, let's talk fighting. I'm surprised we haven't seen players utilize their elbows during scraps.
What these hockey guys don't do, which I tell them all the time, you gotta throw some damn elbows.
There's nothing that says you can't, other than I'm guessing people will say it's an unwritten rule not to, because players never go against unwritten rules, right? We see players continuing to fight once they or their opponents go down all the time, which is breaking an unwritten rule. This Reddit thread is the only time I've ever seen someone ask about this, and they were ripped on just for asking by a bunch of smug people writing as if they're hockey geniuses, clutching their pearls at the very idea, with such clever retorts as, no, because that would be intent to injure, because punching is intent to make someone feel good, right? Any rules around fighting do specify punching, but there's nothing that says you can't elbow somebody. Of course, there are elbowing penalties during the game, but there are also punching penalties during the game. And just in case there are any pearl clutchers watching, just breathe. I'm not saying people should do this, just that with some of the characters this sport has seen, playing in a league where people have licked other people, a league where people have kneed other people in the head while they're down on the ground, something you can't even do in the UFC, I'm surprised no one's tried elbowing in fights. And speaking of protecting your hands in fights, players used to remove their helmets before fights so they could minimize the chance of injury to their hands from punching each other's helmets.
And there's the Warriors. They take off the helmet. Nobody wants to break a hand on a helmet, not guys that have been in the league this long.
Until it was decided that players potentially cracking their helmetless heads off the ice was too dangerous to allow, and that the league wanted to keep fighting in the game, but remove staged fights. So they instituted an additional 2-minute unsportsmanlike conduct penalty for taking your helmet off before fighting. However, even though it has happened, there's still nothing in the rules against agreeing to remove each other's helmets prior to fighting. I don't know how you'd ever prevent that without saying that fights must be stopped when a helmet is lost, as who's to say what constitutes deliberately letting your opponent remove your helmet. Obviously, players might simply not want to take their helmets off anymore, as the incredibly scientific evidence suggests that hurting your head is worse than hurting your hands. But hey, they're still willing to fight on skates, on ice, where they can lose their helmets, so who knows what risks some of them might be okay with taking.
McDermott went to take his helmet off, which of course is illegal.
Another way to get a 2-minute penalty is by shooting the puck over the glass in your defensive zone. Players used to simply be able to shoot the puck over the glass if they needed a line change, until the league made shooting the puck over the glass in your own zone, which is obviously exploited a ton, a penalty.
Not really under any pressure. He's got all kinds of time, just tries to flip it out. He can't even believe he just did it.
So, I'm surprised we don't see more pucks flicked into the Jumbotron to stop pressure, avoid icing, and allow your team to get a line change in if you really need a breather. Though it'd be easier said than done, it has happened, and it's happened relatively recently in a Flames-Kraken game. It even resulted in confetti falling all over the ice, which stopped the game for even longer. What Calgary was doing with confetti in their Jumbotron, especially in March of 2024, is a mystery. Though that play looked like a bit of a deflection, this play was not. And it also made some paneling fall off, which landed on the ice. And that looked pretty effortless, so yeah. I'm surprised we don't see players who desperately need a line change, don't want to ice the puck, and have an extra second of time absolutely launch pucks into Jumbotrons. Another good time to just shoot the puck away based on the rules, that looks and seems extremely bizarre in the heat of a game, is to deliberately turn the puck over when you're on the power play and there's a delayed penalty call. Your chances of scoring 5-on-3 are much greater than 6-on-4, as there's just so much more room on the ice. So, instead of wasting any amount of potential 5-on-3 time, you might as well just give the other team the puck so their second penalty gets called immediately, and you have as much 5-on-3 time as possible. Nathan MacKinnon seems to be one of the only NHL players who's aware of this and consistently uses it to the Avalanche's advantage. Here he is doing it again, which confused the hell out of TJ Brody, that or he tried to prevent it. Either way, the Avalanche ended up scoring by merely attempting it.
They were trying to give it away to get the whistle, but Drouin scores.
You also don't run the risk of putting the puck into your own net by pulling your goalie for the 6-on-4. After all, teams have scored on themselves as a result of pulling their goalies for delayed penalties. And finally, this is my favorite loophole in the rules that I have very rarely seen exploited. I'm guessing most people aren't familiar with this one, so I'll lay out a real scenario in detail. The Senators need a goal. There's only 30 seconds left in the game, and they're down 2-1 to the Ducks. But they're also down 2 players as they're killing off a 5-on-3. Now, You're Claude Giroux, you've just received a pass and crossed Anaheim's blue line on an odd man rush. What do? Do you A, take a long-range shot at the net, maybe trying to use the defender as a screen? B, try and deke through the defense and get to the net that way? C, pass the puck to one of your team's best offensive players, Tim Stützle, and have him try A or B? Or D, just fire the puck over the glass? Well, let's see what Giroux chose. That's right, D, he fired the puck over the glass. Why? He didn't do so accidentally, or out of frustration, or because he gave up and blew any minuscule chance his team had. He made what's probably the best choice you can make here, and gave the Senators more of a realistic, concrete chance at tying this game than they ever had at this point. As putting the puck over the glass in the offensive zone isn't an automatic delay of game penalty, it is technically against the rules if you do it deliberately, but since it's not automatic, who's to say what deliberately doing it or what just missed the glass for a dump and chase is? So refs never call this, and they never will. They don't even call it a penalty if they think you were a millimeter outside of your own zone. And not only is it not a penalty, but if you do it in the offensive zone, it actually gives you a face-off in the offensive zone. And not only has Claude Giroux consistently been one of the best face-off guys in the league, but he's killing the Ducks in the circles today, particularly Isaac Lundestrom, who he's 4-0 against in this game. And Lundestrom is who the Ducks are putting out there as their best chance at winning these draws. So Giroux pretty much knows he can win the face-off and get the puck back, but more importantly, this play ends up enabling the Senators to pull their goalie as the puck is deep in the Ducks' zone. So now the Senators can comfortably play 4-on-5 instead of 3-on-5. And this play ends up giving the Senators not one, but 3 legitimate last-ditch chances at tying the game. First up, Giroux wins the face-off cleanly, and Stützle fires the puck directly into DeStyle's glove. On the second chance, Lundstrom's kicked out of the draw, so a non-centerman and Killorn steps in. There's a scramble, and Stützle loses control of the puck, but Frank Vatrano misses the empty net. The Senators bring it back up the ice, where Tkachuk's shot is deflected over the glass, so another face-off. There's now less than 2 seconds on the clock, which may seem impossible to come back from, but we have seen goals with less than 1 second on the clock.
And he wins it back to Foley, scores!
And Giroux wins yet another clean face-off, but the Senators bobble the play. So they didn't end up tying it, but talk about giving yourself a chance and creating something out of nothing. Not only am I surprised you don't see that more often, but I'm surprised you don't see it in way less specific scenarios. For instance, if they ever get the puck in the offensive zone, penalty killers could just flick the puck over the glass every time they can, as they could win the following face-off and rag the puck back into their defensive zone, waste some time, and dump it back down, killing a ton of the other team's power play time and momentum. But yeah, there you have it. There are all kinds of ways to bend the rules, and if you're aware of any more loopholes, leave them in the comments.
You want to add to that? No? There we go.